Good evening. As the country vacillates from a crisis to another, is there hope that Ugandans can unite to resolve its problems? Or is the country deeply polarized as a result of toxic politics where winner takes it all? Is the opposition doyen the political messiah who will deliver Uganda to the proverbial maker? Is the burden too heavy for him to lift on his own? On the spotlight is former FDC party president, Dr. Kizza Besigye. Dr. Besigye, thank you very much for honoring our invitation. You're on the spot tonight.
Thank you very much, and a very good evening to all the NTV viewers and listeners out there.
Dr. Besigye, let's begin with the state of Uganda's economy, because at many times you have aspired to lead this country. Where we stand today, the economy seems to be extremely weak. For the last couple of years, South Sudan, which was in a big Ugandan market, is under the clutches of conflict. Graft continues to rise. What would you have done differently if you were given the opportunity to run the affairs of the country, given where we are now?
Well, quite obviously, that's a very broad question, which touches on the entire management of the state. And we are not where we are by accident. We are not where we are simply because there is a problem in Sudan. We are where we are because of the policies and the way the country has been managed over the last 32 years and before. And that is on two main fronts. One is the institutions that run the country and the policies that are run by those institutions. Institutions are critical for how a country, makes a trajectory. You have countries that were at the same level of development in 1962 when we got independence with us, who are now very developed economies. The Asian economies, which were at the same rate, that have changed. You have countries which, fortunately many people have written on why nations fail, why nations succeed. And, you have examples of countries which are same culture, same people, only divided by the way the different communities are run. And you find the community which falls under different management has collapsed, the other one has succeeded. So it starts with the institutions. Now, in our case, it starts with the freedom. It's the freedom that advises the institutions. We are a captive state and have been a captive state all this time. Now, captive people do not have initiative. They don't develop the kind of initiative that creates innovation and therefore produces wealth. So it starts with that, the type of education we have. You see, even now, people in education institutions who don't have freedom to express themselves. And if they express themselves, they are repressed, they are beaten, and so on and so forth. So it starts there. It goes into the, so you have lack of initiative, lack of innovation arising out of the type of education you get. You have a lack of investment or what to invest, because you have policies that extract whatever people produce and leave them with nothing to invest. So the tax policies that we have high tax regimes that extract and don't leave people money to develop. And that's why you see Mr. Museveni going around becoming a donor of people's money, because he doesn't get that money from anywhere else. It is people's money which he has drained, and now he comes posing as a donor of their money.
On the elements of innovation, Dr. Besigye, Uganda has been lauded for being such an enterprising nation. that people every day, they are innovating, they are enterprising, they are starting businesses, they are doing something new, something afresh. It's known at a global scale.
Ugandans have an incredible capacity to survive. And that's why they try, each and everything. That's why indeed now, because there are no jobs anyway, whether in private or public sector, everybody is trying to become an entrepreneur. And so Uganda, as I understand it, is one of the countries with the highest level of businesses that are started every year. But it's not surprising that the greatest majority of those fail within the same year. Why? Because the environment is not such that it can support the survival of those businesses. So you have all this money drawn from the population through high taxation, and where is it employed? It is not employed in areas that will support the development of people, the human development, or it is deployed in making the regime strong in order to maintain power, not to support health. So we don't invest in health. We don't invest in the education of our people. We don't invest in clean water and sanitation. We don't invest in things that support people. So you have it's a whole complex problem. So we have malnutrited mothers who produce underweight children, which children become stunted because of poor nutrition in childhood. We have one out of every 3 children in Uganda today stunted. Now, stunting is not about only physical growth, but even the mind. And I'm not surprised sometimes when I see, what some of our people say and how they behave. It starts there in growth. There is a fundamental problem. So you have children.
Do you also see
these are the children?
Dr. Besigye, do you also see areas where there's some level of success, especially in the area?
Yeah, we can talk.
For example, malaria incidences have been controlled tremendously to almost 17%. For example, maternal mortality has also been at least reduced.
Thanks to Bill Gates.
The area of polio.
Thanks to Bill Gates.
Immunization has been
absolutely
improved.
And that's
greatly.
Why, yes, and I'm extremely grateful to foreigners. I'm extremely grateful to foreign taxpayers who have not only deprived themselves of those resources for the benefit of our people, but have insisted on how those resources are going to be managed here. Because remember, the moment those resources actually get into the hands of our people, they will be stolen, like we've seen with the Global Fund. So what I think the Bill Gates Foundation and other people who have made an impressive impact on some of the health care issues, have actually taken care to see that their resources get. So now, Mr.
But they're
Museveni,
not just working alone; they're working with the system that is existing.
Yes, the system that is existing is
in those
there,
areas for the little success that they're able
but they
to
take
point
care
out, Dr.
to
Besigye.
make sure that if they buy mosquito nets, they are actually following up to see that those nets get to the people. And the role of Mr. Museveni will be just to come and stand there and launch the giving of nets, but they are not going to put these things in these ads. So yes, but this is, as I have said, interventions of other people, over taxpayers' money. Our own resources, see the investment of our own resources, whether we are investing in human development or whether we are even investing in production. We are not investing in agriculture. We are not investing in the areas that impact, the human resource, the human development. We are, of course, now priding ourselves in investing in some aspects of the infrastructure at colossal amounts of money because of corruption. So the infrastructure, the borrowing, and that is one of the problems for the economy. Whatever little that is talked about has been done at an exorbitant price of borrowed money. So we have an economy that is heavily indebted domestically. The money, even now, paying people salaries is borrowed from our banks here. So you, Patrick, if you are an entrepreneur, you are competing with the government for credit to get money to invest in your business. And therefore, because the government is borrowing heavily, the interest rates remain stubbornly high. That is the money you are going to put in your investment to produce and compete with Kenyans and other people.
Yes, but
so
but
that is all these are the policies that have created failure of our economy. It hasn't failed overnight.
There are Ugandan businessmen and the elite who have some kind of money, but they have decided to invest in real estate and business, as opposed to invest in a cottage industry, something like that can produce. Have we gotten it wrong? Because if you go downtown,
you see again, you need to see who is investing in real estate. It's not entrepreneurs, actually. It is permanent secretaries. It is ministers. It is, people who have stolen the money and are looking for where to keep it. So real estate is not a business undertaking. It's a storage facility for stolen money. Some invest it in actual land, buy land. You saw those of Obey having, so many square miles of land and so on and so forth. That's not, so that is part of the distortion that is created by the systemic corruption that is choking this country. So if you're asking why the economy is collapsing, it is the fundamentals, the institutions, which are hinged on the type of regime that we have, whether we have a regime that is accountable, that respects the voices of people, that therefore has institutions that are accountable.
But somebody watching and listening to you to say, wait a minute, you, Dr. Besigye, you have the capacity to invest in a small cottage industry somewhere in Kanungu, somewhere in Rukunjiri, or anywhere else in Uganda, and so are other people at your level, and maybe employ some Ugandans, and people can learn from you. Yes, I know you run businesses, but it's kind of trade. If you are producing something Ugandan from somewhere, that people can learn from you.
Yes, and
can learn from the likes of you. But that's not happening.
And I can tell you that I try at a personal level. I try, I produce my own food at least. I have a small farm, I do some small business. But let me tell you that anybody involved in genuine business, whether small or big, in this country, is against the wall. Why? Because of the things that I told you. The massive corruption. You will not do anything without having to pay.
Amidst all
the
that,
taxes,
the
Ugandan
businessmen who have succeeded, are they not there? Including yourself, sir.
Well, who has succeeded? Who are the businessmen that have succeeded? I'm listening.
I saw the late Mulwana and his dairy farm.
Yes, and a lot of respect for the late James Mulwana.
Yes.
But let me tell you that and I used to chat with him quite often. He was an extremely frustrated person. He first believed, on the lies of Mr. Museveni that, he was interested in developing manufacturers and developing industry and so on, until he actually realized, and this is, by the way,
He did honest business, survived,
let me tell you.
passed it on to his children, and it still stands today in the same environment,
yes,
Dr. Besigye.
Let me tell you.
And there are others maybe like
in any other environment, Mulwana's empire would now be multinational, you know, and would be, you know, a heavy, you know, a big employer and so on and so forth. But let me tell you, you know, this is deliberate. The fact that we don't have, you look at, you know, why isn't any Ugandan in the financial sector? The only indigenous financial institution to talk of now is Centenary Bank. And I can predict that that bank will soon be under attack, like all the others that have been attacked and destroyed. Why? Because it's a deliberate policy of a regime like we have, whose purpose is not developing people, or the country for that matter, but rather maintaining power and, of course, the influence of a few. So, the financial sector is totally controlled by foreigners today. Look at the businesses you are talking about. Which are the flourishing businesses? These are, the telecom companies, all foreign, who are, you are paying every time you talk. In the evening, they load money and send home. You know, so. And it's not because.
So would you take a radical decision if you were to run the affairs of the country, and these banks that are foreign, you show them the exit, including the telecom industry?
No. You see, what I have said.
In a liberalized
what
economy.
I have said is, domestic ones have been deliberately killed. We had Uganda Commercial Bank; it was doing very well. We had Cooperative Bank. Cooperative Bank did not have. You know, when it was closed, they said it had a shortfall of 5 billion shillings, which was also not true because government was actually owning the cooperative movement much more money. But it was closed, it was destroyed. So have all the others that were in the financial system. These are deliberate acts, you know. And so you are asking, why is the economy collapsing? It is the institutions, it is the policies, it is the corruption, which is also institutional, which is part of the, this whole patronage system. It's official corruption, actually. Nobody gets big business without going through State House. You know, the very things that Mr. Museveni was criticizing previous regimes on. He used to talk about, Benaissa and how he was marveling at, Asians negotiating business with Benaissa. Nobody today comes an investor here without going through State House. And to go through State House, of course, you go through his children, through his in-laws, through what? And you get there, and by the time you get there, they have structured who is taking which percentage and so on and so forth. All these go back to affect the... Look at the energy sector. Why is Uganda having the most expensive power in the region?
Your submission, Dr. Besigye, sends a cold chill down the spine of every Ugandan who's talking, who's listening to you or watching to you right now. What would you advise that a Ugandan should do for his country?
Well, fortunately, your own question was, why is the economy so weak? So everybody, at least today, recognizes that the economy is weak. Whether you like to put your head under the sand, you see, there are things you can refuse advice, but you can't refuse the consequences of refusing good advice. And so, as long as this system remains, and now I don't think it has really any medicine that can treat it. As I have said, it starts with the fundamentals of how institutions are developed, what advises the development of institutions. The advice I would give to any Ugandan who wants to live in a better country is that we must simply pull together and put an end to this NRM junta. There are no two ways about it. The question, therefore, which we have been grappling with and discussing in the public is how do we put an end to this misery that has been created by this junta? In other words, how do we put an end to this junta? And I have been very forthright. This junta and the previous ones came into power not by permission of people, not by people giving them power, but by grabbing it.
With your help, sir?
Yes, in the case of the present one, with my involvement. And the taking back of that power will not happen through, appealing to the goodwill of those who are holding it, saying, you see, it is really dangerous now, it can cause problems in the future, you can see you've been in power for too long, and so on. That is not going to help. All we must do is unite, put our effort together to pull the power from them, to make it impossible for the regime to continue doing what it is doing, which is destroying the country. And it is very easy if, first of all, we get to the same understanding of what is causing the misery, because some people don't even appreciate that, there is a problem or where the problem is coming from. That is the starting point. There must be a realization, an understanding, an appreciation that the system is wrong. Two, there must be an appreciation that all of us must act together as citizens to regain influence in the country. But that it will not be done by, one individual or another small group of individuals. That's why I have resisted.
You have tried several times to inspire Ugandans to see your viewpoint, and you have also tried to aspire to lead this country. And I just want to bring your attention to what we saw in Chadondo, when a young man came up, and actually FDC opposed him in that election, so NRM also opposed him. But many Ugandans, young people, came up in big numbers and showed that Ugandans can stand up and elect a leader that they want, and they win, and in big numbers. And even if you want to cajole, or you want to intimidate, or even want to steal, you'll find something that is like a juggernaut that you cannot stop.
Yes.
What can you learn so that you can?
It's not what can I. It's not what can I learn.
How can you ride on the wave?
Chadondo did not come on its own, and that's why sometimes I get baffled at the lack of contextualization or even memory of where we have come from. Chadondo did not come on its own. What happened in 2016 and the way we won the election in 2016 did not come on its own. It has been built by a lot of effort, consistent effort, in explaining, and that's why I come when you invite me, because I use whatever platform I can get, indeed, to impress it upon whoever listens that they have a responsibility. They have a role. They must come up. They must be bold. They must organize. You just don't come up, but you must be well organized.
But for you, who is interested in changing the course of the affairs of this country, that is the wave we should be riding on. That is the momentum.
You don't just ride, and that's the danger of of many people thinking that they are looking for what to ride. You must build the vehicle to ride. Don't just wait to jump and ride. We have been building the momentum very, very painstakingly. It takes time, it takes pain, it takes effort, it takes suffering and resilience. It doesn't come easily. And so whoever wants to build, not to ride, must go down and do that painstaking effort to influence Ugandans to see things differently and to get involved. We still have, I always, joke about the saying in Busoga, which say, Omwami chakoba nze nachyenkoba. That is a reflection of how deep the domination of our minds has been over the more than 100 years of domination. So the first thing to liberate is the mind, so that Ugandans can believe in themselves. And the better minds or quicker minds to liberate are the young ones. Because the more old you are, the more rigid you are in your beliefs. So yes, our target must be young people. It is young people that change the world. It is young people that change countries. Indeed, when we went to the bush, we were young people. And I have indeed been complaining to the young people that it's unfair to have gone in the bush when I was 20 and gone through the tough times, and I still have to go through tear gas when I'm 60. Should be the young people. But they must know that it takes, one, influencing people's minds so that people have the right mindset. Two, that they have the right organizational skills, because it just won't happen. You need organizational skills. And let me, also put in context the challenge that we have, because again, some people try to minimize it. They think that if you win a constituency, you can win power in the country. There are two different cups of tea. You need different levels of mobilization and organization to overcome a determined, armed to the teeth dictator like we are dealing with. And that's, so some people get frustrated. It has taken long, it is this and that, we have failed. But I can tell you that it takes time. And you are talking about a weak economy. It's not just a weak economy. It's a weak regime. The regime is, for all intents and purposes, finished. If you see,
hold on to your point, Dr. Besigye, because you're going to take a break. And when we come back, we'll be starting from there, because you have stated before that the regime is finished. It is going. The days are numbered, and yet you have tussled against them for the last 20 years, and they are still here. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Mara, and my guest tonight is Dr. Kizza Besigye. And we're looking at the state of affairs in our country. If we can just take a mental flight back, in the 80s, probably you are in your 20s, like you said. You saw the affairs then. You are angry. Probably you are inspired. And probably you had been groomed. And you went to do something and change the course of Uganda. And you did that. 40 years later, who is grooming this generation? Or who is not grooming them? So that they can have the positive anger that you and the likes of you had then. And then they changed Uganda, even though you seemed what you've brought us, you're now even not comfortable with what you brought in this town.
Well, I think there are two things, Patrick. One is that people are indeed being groomed, as we were, by two things. One, we are groomed by the environment, by the hardships, by the realities of the day. And those are definitely grooming people in this town, in this country. The hardships and how people react is indeed the result of the environment, including, of course, the bad habits. Now everybody who walks in Kampala knows that you can't walk with your phone in your hand loosely, it will be grabbed. Everybody knows that, you must close your windows if you are driving in town. Otherwise, things will be pulled out of there. What is causing those kinds of habits, bad habits and so on, is the environment. So the environment has a way of impacting on people. But secondly, it is the influence of some over others. And that happens through exchange of information, giving people the kind of information that will impact their thinking and their worldview. And that
information is running faster than ever before. There are many platforms where people can express themselves. I mean, Ugandans are communicating more today than they were 40, 50 years ago. But where are the results of that communication? Where are the results of the technology that we have and the platforms like these and many more?
I think the results are there, Patrick. They don't happen very dramatically.
For the
maybe,
results that you want. Because for the
They-
other people, they think the results
they
that
may-
Uganda, there are those who think Ugandans are happy.
Well, again, it's a question of how the judgment is made. But let me tell you that, you know, how people change is gradual. It's not dramatic. It's exactly the same way a child grows. Patrick, if you go home today, you won't say, oh, my child has grown today. But for sure, the child is growing and soon will be taller than you. And that is happening in our country all these years. And I have seen it happen myself from the time we started engaging actively in challenging the current regime. I have seen tremendous changes in the population. And those who think that there is no anger in the population, again, must be putting their heads in the sand, because some of it has been, you know, exhibited, like what happened in 2009 when there were the Kayunga riots. Some people saw a bit of the anger that is painted in the population. So there is change in the population. Awareness has definitely increased tremendously. Indeed, previously people would think that change will be caused by a few people, and they would be telling us all the time, we pray for you, we encourage you, go on, don't give up, you know, fight for us. But that has changed, and indeed, if you were, you know, watching what happened in 2016, you should have realized that the election of 2016 was very different from what was there before. It was an election in which I went all over the country and people were giving me money, giving me food, giving me, you know, things to use, and saying, let's fight, let's carry on. They were now part of the struggle. They were not just encouraging and saying, go on.
Dr. Besigye, you claim the 2016 election was stolen from you.
You may have seen what went on
Yes.
in Rukunjiri the other day. People who were given, you know, money, and they are now coming and saying, yes, they have brought our money.
Was that you shaking the tree and the things?
Yes, I mean, it's the awareness. The awareness, we are talking about very different people that you see now. The people, the people who are
you telling us the
their
people
will.
of Rukunjiri have benefited from your sweat by the 5 billion?
It's not just the people of Rukunjiri, it's the people of Uganda through this gradual effort at increasing awareness. People have been struggling, and it's not me, it's them that struggle. You know, you've seen people close roads that are very bad, and when they do, the roads are made. You've seen people here in Kampala close their shops, all over Uganda, close their shops and say, this is intolerable, we shall not continue having this. And when businessmen have closed their shops, whatever they wanted was responded to instantly. So people have become aware that they must struggle, that they must assert their will, that they will not just lament. That is a major, major shift, considering that it's happening in a very broad kind of situation. So, as I was saying, you know, the regime, for all intents and purposes, which was mighty, which was popular, which was what, is finished.
But
it's through struggle.
Finished
And
how? Last year launched something called Tubalemese campaign. And that was supposed to build some kind of vibrancy, and people buy into the idea.
You see,
Tubalemese campaign failed, sir.
You see, Patrick, it depends on what you call failure. Failure is when you stop.
Are you now reaping the results of Tubalemese?
I've told you the regime is on its knees.
But that's what you always say, Dr. Besigye.
Let me ask
it's
you.
Now 20 years since
let me ask
I was with you in Masaka when you were campaigning in 2006, when you're telling the people of Masaka that they are lucky because they will see the man going.
You see,
that never happened.
Those out there.
I was with you in 2011 when you talked of a tsunami.
Those
sir.
out there who are believers, those out there who are believers, especially Christian believers, know that in the scriptures there is talk of the end of the world and the signs that will show that the world is about to end.
Armageddon is here now?
if
the
you,
Ugandan Armageddon?
if you read what it says, you know, all the signs for the end of the world have been with us for some time. Yet, you know, it hasn't come. We don't know whether it will come tomorrow. We don't know whether it will come next year. We don't know whether it will come 10 years. But the believers, like I do, know that the world will surely soon end. And therefore, if you are a wise believer, what you are called on to do is to prepare. Because it can happen anytime. And this is exactly what we have. No one, to my mind, has ever predicted with any form of certainty how regimes like the one we have end. No one. Today it is a powerful, respected regime. Tomorrow it is no more. And I'm sure you've seen many such, some of which have just emerged out of an election and been declared winners with massive majorities. And the following day they are dead. And you cannot even think that these were people that were holding any. So the signs for the end of the regime. But you
also know
that
you have created many strategies
yourself,
that have not worked for you or for the party.
So you yourself, you have in this program been questioning why is the economy so weak. So that a weak economy is not a sign of a strong regime. It's not a sign of a surviving regime. Security, look at the security in this country, which is what, more than anything else, Mr. Museveni used to pride on. The peace and the security we ushered in. How many people still think that, that peace and security is there? And anybody who cares to observe will indeed know. Mr. Museveni himself has said that these institutions are now infected with weevils. A country whose security system is infested with weevils is not a strong regime by any measure or any form of imagination. So the security is dysfunctional, and I can tell you this from a very experienced eye. Popular legitimacy, any regime of any kind that will survive must have a level of people who believe in it. This regime, you ask even the members of its cabinet, and they are not few, I don't know, they are 90 or whatever. I believe that 90-something% of the people, if you stand with them in the quiet, somewhere alone, they will tell you they also don't really know what is happening. So the signs that this regime...
The signs you're talking about, Dr. Besigye, tonight, are the signs you talked about a couple of years ago.
Yes.
And you have said this regime has been weak and weak.
And I have told you.
And
I have told you
four times, legitimately or not, they have denied you the opportunity to lead.
I have told you that my personal
outcompeted you 4 times.
My personal role or responsibility, which I would invite others to also look at, is how to prepare for the end. First of all, I am not under any illusion that this regime still holds any answers to the many challenges that our country faces. I don't think that there are many people out there who are waiting for a miracle that,
but now you're speaking like a messiah, telling us about the end times. So should Uganda wait for the signal?
No.
For your signal?
No, it's not my signal. So you see, the thing is, once at least that illusion that this regime can turn things around is over in people's minds, and I believe it is in the greatest majority of minds. Nobody still hopes that, a regime that is importing doctors 32 years in office and saying they are doing that because their own doctors are bad and unprofessional and patriotic, and that's why they have to import Cubans. You know, if you have a regime that has become that decadent, not to realize that good doctors are produced, they don't fall from heaven, and that they therefore are accepting before Ugandans that they have failed to produce Ugandans, later on to have a functioning healthcare system. Once people now come to the conclusion that this regime is done, nothing can be hoped for.
Good doctors like you have gone into politics and business.
Nothing can be hoped for. Then, yes, that is the beginning of finding a solution. And I can see that Ugandans now are indeed in the mode to see how do we work for and manage a transition. That's where the focus of most Ugandans are. How do we now work for a quick transition and manage it to lead the country into a different trajectory? That is the preoccupation that we are all having.
There was a time, Dr. Besigye, when you still have energy, but there was a time when you were a young man, energetic and vibrant. You could live in the bush for 5 years. You could do all sorts of things and treat the fighters who were injured and come back and with pride and be a minister and run a party and, you know, resign from running that party. You are at once 25 or 20 when you started the struggle. You are now above 60. I mean, your also trajectory is curving. Your energy levels are also going low.
Yes, and
so what happens? When do you throw in the towel?
You see, the struggle is not about my getting anywhere. It is about the country getting somewhere. And that will take the energy, the effort, the experience of everybody. It will take the energy of the young. It will take our experience, those who have some experience. It will take the energy that we are remaining with. In a struggle, in a war, you cannot say, you know, this one is now not useful. That is not in the struggle. I have even, first of all, you know, anybody who knows my background, I have never set out to look for leadership, actually. Throughout my education, I never sought or became a leader of any kind.
Circumstances pushed you where you are.
Yes, so my struggle, no, it's not, because they have a different history. My struggle is only, and indeed, I led FDC. I did not stick into its leadership. I stepped down well before I was meant to step down, although FDC, again, is the only one party that I know which has term limits. I did not wait for my term. So my preoccupation is not about where I should go or be. My preoccupation is where the country should be that I live in and that my offsprings would live in. That is the struggle. Now, so we need everybody, and more so the young ones.
Yes, but what I'm saying, Dr. Besigye, whoever has watched you over time also thinks that there's a time when the law of diminishing returns will set in, that there are things you did 10 years ago, and everybody else, you cannot do them tomorrow. Do you feel the sense of frustration that, look, your energy levels could go down and yet the change has not come?
No, I cannot allow frustration to, you know, become my preoccupation, to become my attention, to gain my attention. Why should I be frustrated?
Because it's a reality. There's something you want to achieve and you have not achieved.
You see, the thing is, it's not only a change in the country that we want to achieve and that we have not achieved. Even as you leave home in the morning, maybe you want to achieve certain things during that day and you may not achieve them. It doesn't mean you should go home frustrated. You should go home happy with what you have achieved and looking forward to achieving what you have not yet achieved. And that is my own outlook. I wake up every day very focused on what needs to be done to change the trajectory of this country. And, you know, again, as I have said, my biggest preoccupation is actually to try and get many more people join the struggle.
You know,
and by doing that, I am indeed creating a situation where my own effort and involvement doesn't have to be that much necessary.
It was reported in the media at one time that you are planning to hold talks with President Museveni under the auspices of the Swedish government. Did this have any merit, and what happened to the talks?
Well, first of all, as I have said, our struggle is about really changing the trajectory of the country. And as you know, in 2016, we went into an election which we are totally convinced we won, and with evidence. And all we were seeking, which we would be even happy today to have, is an audit of that election. You know, to have people that can come, and it's not, we would not be pioneering in auditing an election, because don't forget that the election itself was not concluded. It was not concluded because me, one of the candidates, and indeed, even according to their own pronouncement, the one with the highest number of votes, apart from the one being challenged, I did not have an opportunity to
petition
the election, because, first of all, I was under detention. Even my lawyers couldn't come to me. And that was public. It was not a secret matter. Two, our offices were occupied. That's where we were arrested from. Our headquarters were, captured, remained in the hands of the police for 3 weeks. You can only petition in 10 days. So in the 10 days that we were allowed to petition, I did not have the slightest opportunity to do so. And you must petition personally, by the way. Not any other person can petition on your behalf. So once, and this was done by orders of the other candidate. These security operations of surrounding me, of detaining me, were under the direct orders of candidate Museveni. So clearly he grabbed power, and all we were questioning was, can we then have a decent way of finding out what happened?
Okay, hold on to your points.
So that was the basis
Dr.
of the...
Dr. Besigye, hold on to your points, because we're going to take a break, and when we come back, I'll be opening the lines, that the numbers on the screen, so that you can call and ask, maybe agree with him or disagree with Dr. Besigye, or maybe give us any information of value that you think can propel Uganda ahead. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On the Spot. My name is Patrick Amar. My guest tonight is Dr. Kizza Besigye. Dr. Besigye, you have been accused of relying on a mob to popularize your candidature. And in turn, I'm told you have also accused the elite of being out of touch by labeling your supporters and giving them names. How can you harmonize so that the elite and the people whom others have called just a mob to popularize your ideas and all that, so that you can have some kind of a collaboration, that an understanding?
I'm not sure that I really understand
the question.
I just hazard to think that you are asking why I am maybe not favored by many in the elite. Because you are saying my support is the mob, but the elite's question...
There are actually those who fear you.
In the elite?
Yes. That this man looks to be very angry and could be violent.
Yes, and why not the others, whom they call the mob? And in any case, what is it, to your understanding or anybody's understanding, do I have to force anybody to support me or to unduly influence anybody to support me? And if I don't have means of coercion or means of undue influence like money, bribing people and so on to gain support, how would I stop others who are not feared, who are more respected by those people you are talking about? What stops them coming up and indeed offering leadership? How would I be an impediment? Why would it take me, first of all, maybe running away or disappearing, for anybody to come up? Whom did I make to disappear in order for me to come up?
Let me ask, because in your party, you have many decent men, but you also had quite a number of decent people who have also bring a certain value into the party that are no longer, well, very vibrant. Because somebody will say, wait a minute, what happened to your colleague from Rukunjiri or Kanungu, Musinguzi Garuga? They say, wait a minute, where is Jack Sabiti that used to be very vibrant? Wait a minute, where is Augustine Ruzindana? Wait a minute, where is Major Kazora? Wait a minute, where are these names? Because their people have a certain value that they can bring to the party if they are seen working alongside you and others. But when they take a backseat position, there's something that you lose as a party.
Well, first of all, I hope you indeed appreciate that I don't run the party. I have not run FDC since 2012 when I stepped down. In the intervening period, it was run by Major General Mugisha Muntu and presently by the Honorable Patrick Amuriato Boy. And, you know, parties are associations of those who freely want to associate.
But do you know the names I've given you, sir? Some people, that has been understood to mean they have disembarked.
Well,
or if they are not on the stage, there's something you lose as a party.
I thought it was the same you who was saying that as you grow old, you give way to others to come up.
So it's only Dr. Besigye that doesn't grow old?
No, even me, I am no longer the leader of the party, am I? So the party is led, and there are new characters.
Let's face it, Dr.
There are new characters.
You are the opposition doyen, the face of the opposition, the face of FDC.
I am an activist.
The personality cultism of politics in Uganda is so much alive in FDC. In you, sir.
So if it is alive in me, it can't be for FDC. Actually, even as a candidate, I was never voted for or supported by only FDC. There were people in DP who have been even more active than those in FDC, people in
DP is a grouping now.
People in UPC and so on and so forth. And that is because of the matter which you, for some reason, not just you, but many in the elite, seem to be completely non-cognizant of, which is that we are not really in a functioning multi-party political system. We are a captive state. Political parties are institutions, democratic institutions. Democratic institutions cannot function in a military dictatorship. They won't. They can play a role, and they are playing a role because the military dictatorship wants to clothe itself as some kind of a democratic regime. And so they say we allow parties to exist. There is a law that allows parties. Of course, the parties call a meeting. They are tear gassed and stopped from functioning. But they play a role. Once they are allowed by law, they play a role, and we allow them to play a role.
Even your party recognized it.
But
recognizes the regime.
Make no mistake.
You appointed a leader of opposition. We have those two sides in parliament.
Make no mistake. I have told you.
It's a multi-party dispensation working.
I've told you that there is no multi-party dispensation working. There is no democracy working. If there was anybody in doubt, maybe the activities of late last year, what happened in Parliament would have woken up people. This is simply an entrenched military dictatorship. It's a junta, and that's why I use the word very advisedly, that this is an NRM Museveni junta. A junta is a regime controlled by a few people, normally with the use of weapons to dominate others, and that's exactly what we have.
Let me open the lines.
And therefore, make no mistake, you know, people who support me don't support me because I hoard any kind of capacity to stop others from competing with me in anything or any form. It is because they recognize that we are in a struggle, and that, you know, all of us need to work together for the struggle. I simply possibly happen to have offered leadership before others did in the struggle, and so people have been identifying with that.
At first you said you didn't want to lead, but now you have offered leadership. But let me open the line so that Ugandans can add to this discussion. Maybe agree with you or not. I have a caller online. Hello.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
My name is Patrick.
Yes, Patrick, you're on air.
Yes. Now, I thank you for the analysis you made today. And there are two issues I've discovered, actually.
Okay.
The level of unemployment in Uganda, that is going on. And another thing is, in the case of business, today
the cost of doing business in Uganda.
Exactly, in Uganda. People who are benefiting in business today are not the potential entrepreneurs, but rather people who are politically connected to the corridors of power. And really, the one who is succeeding in terms of business is not the potential person.
Dr. Kizza Besigye is in business, is not connected politically, and he seems to be succeeding in his business.
Well, let me speak for myself about the success.
Because you have been need for something. Thank you very much, Patrick. I'm going to be taking 2 or 3 more callers so that Dr. Besigye can respond to all of you at once. I have another call online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
Good evening, sir. This is Joseph from Masaka.
Joseph from Masaka, you're on air.
Please, my brother Patrick Kawamala, you are a senior journalist.
Yes.
Give Kano Kizza Besigye time to explain what happened yesterday from Rukunjiri. Because President Museveni brought money to bribe voters. And that money, they gave tithe to Kano Kizza Besigye. Give him time to explain to all Ugandans because they want to hear what bribe means when there is a by-election.
Good idea, Joseph. I agree with you. Good idea. Joseph from Masaka. He will definitely have to explain on that. And let me take another caller online. We have a call online. Hello. Hello. I have a call online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm Nelson. I live in Kampala, but now I'm in Soroti.
In Soroti, you're on air, sir. Nelson.
How are you? I want to ask my brother, Dr. Besigye.
Yes.
First of all, if he knew that this regime is just military dictatorship,
Yes.
and a junta, why did he
allow himself as a wise person, intelligent and educated, to continue competing for almost 4 lost elections in a regime that does not favor multi-party politics. And yet he was advancing a political party, once lost, second, third, in a military dictatorship. Why didn't he pull out? That's number one. Number two, Dr. Besigye, you were aware, intelligent. At first we admired you. But now you are aware that we know that you only want to become a president, of which you have failed. It is one thing to become a president of this country. It is another thing to change or transform the country. President Museveni might have failed to transform this country. And I think I liked Kamara's first question. Kamara asked a valid question. What would you offer that this government has failed to offer in agriculture, in ICT, in tourism, name it? You have failed to answer that. You only dwell on blaming the regime, on blaming the long stay in power of Museveni. Does it mean that if you basically take over power, we shall not see what we are seeing? What is it new that you want to add value to?
Thank you. Thank you,
You
Nelson.
have failed to answer that basically.
Thank you, Nelson. Nelson, who's calling from Soroti. Thank you. You've been very precise with your question. Maybe let me try to. My producer is telling me there are quite a number of people who are trying to reach us and maybe voice their concerns. So let me try to take one or two, so that we can.
And I hope indeed you'll give me time to answer.
Oh, for
them.
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, I have a call online. Hello. Hello. Okay, I'm going to leave that and pick another line. I have a caller online. Hello.
Hello.
Good evening, sir. What's your name and where are you calling from?
I'm called Farouk, calling from Kampala.
Farouk in Kampala, you're on air, sir.
I would like to contribute for Dr. Besigye.
Okay.
I would also like to answer the current speaker just spoken.
Mm-hmm.
You see, people keep blaming Besigye for complaining for complaining the government. What he did, we went on the elections, but the elections were cheated. What did these people wanted him to do? You saw what happened. He was in prison. He was not given a chance even to go to court. What did you want this man to do? Again.
He swore in himself somewhere, in a secluded place.
Hello?
He swore in himself at a secluded place, and we saw that on YouTube. Okay, it looks like we're having a time lag in terms of.
Yeah, I got
okay,
the main flow.
maybe, okay. I'm not taking any more calls, but that's because it's an issue of time, not that because I don't want you to speak. So let Dr. Besigye respond.
Yeah, I'm extremely grateful to all of you who have, generously contributed to this discussion, and I, respect all the views that were expressed. First, to Patrick, it's true. Unemployment, you see, there are 3 important elements that we have failed on, all of them. The first one is creation of wealth, because that's what employs people, activities that create wealth. And this, in answering...
There's now an operation.
Yes, and in answering this, I will also be touching on what Nelson was saying, who was saying, that I just criticize, I don't offer a solution. Quite clearly, I think Nelson is one of those people who simply do not like to pay attention to what I'm saying. Because if he did, he would have picked the differences I would like to happen if there was a different situation from what there is. So first, if you want to deal with unemployment, you must invest in creation of wealth. And that's an investment. You must invest there. Not invest in consumption, which this regime is doing most of the time. The investment is in consumption. It is in self-preservation, defense of the regime, not defense of the people. So we don't invest in agriculture. We don't invest in the education of our people. And education, I mean creating skills. And that is the second failure of unemployment. Because if you don't have skills, even when there are jobs, you can't do them.
But you know,
most of our people are not just.
But you know, they have built technical schools.
Most of our people are not just unemployed; they are simply unemployable.
Do you know they have built a number of technical skills across the country?
Where
I've seen them, vocational institutions.
You know, I would be glad.
In Namutumba,
you know,
in Masaka,
you know, they say they built health centers in every parish. They built. You know, schools in every sub-. They are talking. There are many things they talk about, but the reality is known by Ugandans. So the thing is, if you don't invest in creating wealth, you are not investing in skills, and you are producing more than you are creating. You know, the question of the population growth in this country is something that this regime, in fact, has been encouraging. Mr. Museveni has been saying, no, you produce, we want people. Produce. But how can you produce without any plans of where people are going? So you find that even when the little that is being made is overwhelmed by the numbers of people pouring onto the market, on the job market. So with the kind of arrangements that are there today, unemployment can only become worse. Now, on the question of the cost of business, quite obviously, I talked about that. You know, the cost of money is simply too high. The corruption and the cost of how things happen is simply too high. The cost of power, energy, which is, again, a result of corruption. You know, Besigye was supposed to be built by $250 million. We built it at 1.03 billion, and all that is in the cost of energy. Now we are trying to borrow to buy off Aga Khan so that we can subsidize. All this is the problem. Now to Joseph, on the question of Rukunjiri tithe. No, you see what happened is that the people of Rukunjiri were really demonstrating. I think they hold in contempt what Mr. Museveni did after the election roadmap had been announced for him to run there with 5 billion of unplanned money. You know, they sent some agents from State House to go and set up groups from our supporters. Set up groups that...
So your supporters reaped in Rukunjiri?
Yes, so that they can give them money. Some were even totally non-existent, you know, as it turned out.
So your supporters your supporters are cheats?
Even the ones...
So your supporters are cheats?
Well, no, they were just being told, we are bringing money, you form groups. And why not? This is indeed their money. So the people of Rukunjiri are not, you know, I'm proud of them. They are quite conscious. They know, first of all, that this is not Museveni's money. He did not sell cows. That this is money, actually, he taxes from people who are on their deathbeds without medicine. You know, the tax they pay, all these people who are in hospitals without any help.
So how do you get a tithe now from...
That he collects money from them.
How do you partake on that money?
That he collects money from them and goes to buy Rukunjiri people borders and to give, I don't know, Matoke traders money and give MTN, you know, the people who trade in in airtime association money. You know, it is vulgar what he did. And so the people of Rukunjiri are simply demonstrating, saying, you know, we hold this in contempt. And you know, if he thinks he's going to buy us in this election, let's show him that we are not going to be bought, and that, you know, we can take some of that money and give it to Dr. Besigye, who has been struggling to cause this, and, you know, on whose account they believe, on the strength of, you know, our opposition, that he's now coming to firefight. So it was just a demonstration, and I think a justified one. It was to show contempt to what Mr. Museveni
So if
does.
I may use an illustration, you climbed on the tree, you shook on the tree, the fruits fell down, your people picked, and they brought to you.
They brought some to me. Now, on the question of Nelson, please understand that when I say this is a junta, I have said why I say so. There is no government that behaves like this, any democratic government that can arrest their opponent the way they did in 2016. And later on, you know, I was charged in Karamoja for treason. Later on in Kampala here for treason. I went to court and stood in court and said, you don't have to waste money of taxpayers anymore that you are investigating. It is true, I declared myself as the winner. So if there is a problem, you bring it and we solve it here in court. I show you my evidence. That was 2 years ago. The case has never come up to now. So clearly, there was direct abuse of power in detaining, torturing an opponent, denying them of their victory. And that is not any different from how regimes actually, dictatorships grab power, military juntas. So this is a military junta now. So the question was, knowing that, why do I go into an election they call? 3 things. 1, because I told you, if I want to call a meeting here in Kampala to talk to Ugandans, I will be tear gassed. It will not be allowed. Even if I was actually the party leader, you saw me as a party president trying to go out to talk to people and tear gassed. You've seen all these party leaders try to call meetings and they fail. So an election in which the junta pretends to organize, because the junta organizes an election as a facade to show that they are actually also.
That's why Nelson was asking you, why do you partake in something you know?
So once they call that facade, and there is now media attention and so on, the regime is most restrained. We get the opportunity to talk to the people, to change the mindset, to give them the information they need. So it's a wonderful opportunity to talk to the people. That's the first advantage why we must go and use that opportunity. Secondly, in order to regain influence, the population to regain influence, which I have said starts with their changing the mindset. The second thing the population must do, which we can increase their capacity to do in an election, is to organize. Because it is only organized citizens that can reclaim their influence in the country. So in elections, again, we try to impart organizational competencies within the population. Now, thirdly, so this is the second thing. Thirdly, if by any chance we have succeeded